Hello and welcome to this next online classroom. It's great to have you online. Thank you for making the time in your busy day, and I'm excited to get started. I was actually feeling a little bit nervous for this webinar, and one thing that I then sometimes do is just kind of like breathe and relax and actually just tell myself, this is exciting. I am excited. And I'm sharing that with you not because you're waiting to get any presenter insights or learn about that, because this webinar is actually about how to close more sales deals, how to make stunning looking proposals that actually help you to close more deals. And that may, if you are in sales, that may make you a little bit nervous. So let's dive in and get you to that wisdom. I'm not by myself, wearing my Foleon t-shirt to be prepared and like as a lucky charm, but I also have a great team that I haven't introduced to you yet. So first, Dennis, the customer marketeer, and Joran, our product education specialist, are behind the scenes. And whenever you share a message, when you chat, they are the ones responding. So feel free to chat whenever. But then our main main presenter of today is Eva. She is our Director of Strategic Accounts, and I'm very excited to welcome Eva to this webinar. Great to have you online, Eva. Welcome. Could you share a little bit about what you do for Foleon?
Sure. Thanks, Lopke. Happy to be here, and thanks everyone for joining the webinar. I lead Foleon's strategic account team. It's a small but global team where we focus on our core, a core number of customers where we feel like we can add a large amount of value to them. As you can imagine, with a lot of these customers, of course, attracting and retaining customers is a big priority for them. So proposals is something that I spend a lot of my time talking about, and something that I really, really enjoy talking about as well, because it can have a huge impact on our customers and how they really get the most value out of Foleon. So I'm looking forward to discussing and sharing some of that with everyone today.
Exciting. Thank you for joining us and for sharing your wisdom. Another insight about today's online classroom is we've actually created a Foleon doc as a presentation. So if you've been at our webinars or online classrooms in the past, you may kind of see the difference there. It's just something Eva told us we cannot not do. So here we are, Eva, in line with, of course, the Foleon strategy. Practical about the session. We'll be done in 50 to 60 minutes. And this is an on-demand available webinar, so you can always look back parts or fully, no problem. And there is a Q&A. Ask us your questions, share your experience. If you're struggling with something, of course, sales proposal related, let us know and we can help you out during this session. You can do that either in the chat, which is public and everyone can see it and respond to, etc. Maybe better for comments or thoughts. But if you have an actual question that you want to ask Eva, please use the question on the top right, the I have a question button, and we can see all of them coming in. But I will prioritize the questions over the chat questions. The index, what are we going to talk about? So what are sales proposals, how to use Foleon sales proposals, workflow best practices, and also how to implement. Whether you're using Foleon in your sales team already or not, you will have plenty of insights in either how to raise it to a better next level or how to actually get started. We do also have some questions for you. So as we speak, I'm going to start the first poll. It has now appeared on your screen, and we're very curious. Are you currently using Foleon for proposals? Yes? Thinking about it? No? Then please share with us what is stopping you in the chat or is not applicable for you. Just from experience, we know that people that may not be interested in starting sales proposals, but are just interested in soaking up any wisdom about content in Foleon, they just sign up for all webinars. Let us know, what is your situation? Eva, how long has Foleon been using Foleon for their sales proposals?
I think actually a big part of this was maybe since I joined the company about 2.5, 3 years ago, we invested quite a lot of time on working on templates in the platform and the ability to save your own branded templates. That really was the beginning of Foleon being more broadly applicable to lots of different teams. So I think it's around that length of time ago.
That's great. Yeah, it's a proven concept. Quickly looking at the responses coming in on the poll questions, 7 have responded yes. The majority is saying thinking about it. 1 person says, I'll share what's stopping us in the chat. I'm curious to see if we've got that in. And also a few people say not applicable. So that 1 person that responded, I'll share what's stopping us in the chat. Let us know, and that'll be insightful. For now, Eva, I think the stage is yours, and I believe I remember that the first topic was what are sales proposals? So can you enlighten us, please?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Wopke. So just double checking, making sure the tech is good. Everybody can see my screen?
Absolutely. Yes.
Right. Fantastic. All right. So indeed, starting off with what are sales proposals. And I think although this meeting is about sales proposals, underneath a little bit lower down, we've also made a list of some of the many different types of content that can be built within Foleon for sales teams. A proposal, of course, is generally a document that combines a company's offering along with a summary of a particular customer's or prospect's challenges. And it's basically a document to help them to sell the platform that they're looking to purchase internally to various other different stakeholders. So it's really to help people to make a buying choice. We have a nice quote here from Patrick, one of our account executives here at Foleon, just about his particular use of the platform for proposals. So one of the big drivers, I think, and particularly something that Patrick has highlighted here, which is really important, is insights. When you're creating proposals in, which I hear very often, in PowerPoint, that tends to be a pretty common format. Of course, you don't have that level of insight. So are people actually looking through the whole proposal? Are they just going directly to the commercials and looking at the cost of something? Or are they really taking time to go through an asset? So these are all really important things. But I think particularly for sales teams, this is a really big benefit and a really big plus point. So definitely an important thing to highlight from the outset. But of course, as I say, you can use the platform for a variety of different types of sales content. So sales docs, pre-RFP content. Something that I'm seeing more and more actually is customer relationship content. That's a bit of a vague description, but very often what this actually is a live document, something that morphs from a proposal into eventually a larger and larger document and really becomes the central place or the hub where all customer pieces of content, where everything to do with your relationship with a particular customer can be contained within that one neat Foleon package, or it can become a hub or a microsite, of course, as well. So there's a huge amount of flexibility with how you can use proposals. So I'm just going to go on to the next section here.
Can I jump in with a quick question, Eva?
Please. Yeah.
All right. Because I'm not in sales, I'm not making sales proposals, but I'm curious, what industries do you see this work well in?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think the short answer is really it can be used across all industries. Of course, you will just need to take a slightly different approach to how you build and set this up in your Foleon account, depending on whether you're selling one product or 50 products or services. So there's a slightly different approach, but I would say the industries that I see most commonly using Foleon for proposals would be business services, consulting, law, software. Those tend to be the main industries that we see. But again, as I say, it really can be applicable across all industries. So, and we're seeing it more and more, particularly as we develop the platform more and more recently. You'll see a video of it later. We've split our platform, our editor, into two. And with that split that we've done, we've created an environment for business users to be really able to use the platform in a much more simplified manner. And that's what makes proposals a really, really good use case to use in the platform now more so than ever before.
Great. Well, more about that specific topic later. If you're watching and you have a question, or Eva sharing something, you're like, don't quite understand how that would apply to my business or my industry, drop it as a question and we'll get to that soon. Great. You can continue, Eva. Curious.
So why should companies use Foleon for sales proposals? And also underneath that, what do they achieve when they do? So I think there's a couple of things here. Definitely the first one here is going to be that it just is a much more superior experience for your customer, right? We hear very often back from our customers that use the platform for proposals, that their audience, their customers, their prospects were really wowed by the solution. And they felt like the customer put in a huge amount of effort into building this document. It's their secret that it's actually pretty easy. But it does provide a really special experience for the customer. And I think crucially as well for proposals, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but it's a much better medium for storytelling as well. It really allows you to tell a story as opposed to in a PowerPoint, for example. It's very easy and quick to just jump from the cover of a proposal directly down to the pricing. But if you're providing a service with a very long lead time, maybe a number of different deliverables on a 6 to a year, maybe 6 months to a year, then you really don't want people to jump directly to the pricing page. You really want to better be able to tell a story, and so that the readers can understand the impact of your services and how that will, of course, have an impact on the costing as well. So it just allows you to frame your services and your product a lot better, telling a much more compelling story. And I think also from a competitive edge standpoint, I use the words competitive edge specifically because that's also a quote from another customer of ours, that using Foleon has really given them a professional competitive edge. They're the first customer within their particular country, in their industry, using the platform. And they've said, it's just so much more impressive. And it's something that really better aligns with the quality of their company's service and offering. So for them, it really just makes sense to use something of the caliber of Foleon to present their services to their customers as well, versus they used to do it in a PDF before. And of course, importantly as well, the ability to understand the behavior of the customer and you expand your knowledge of the customer as well. So maybe there's a couple of more people involved in the process that you haven't been in touch with yet, and you're really not sure about, who else might be involved or what other stakeholders might have a say. So using Foleon for proposals is key for this, because of course you get really good insights and understanding into who has looked at this document and maybe who else is actually involved in the decision making that maybe you weren't yet aware of. So it just allows you to get a better understanding of your customer as well.
Great. I'm going to jump in with another question. I'm just curious about the people that will start making sales proposals. What do they usually do? They make sales proposals already, but in Foleon, what would they have used before using Foleon?
Yeah, it could be the two most common things that I hear are definitely PDF and PowerPoint.
Okay.
And there's definitely, there's a number of challenges. You can probably imagine what they are. Obviously, I mentioned analytics earlier. That's a big difference, I think, with using Foleon. But also what I hear a lot from design and professional services teams as well, who set up a template, for example, in PowerPoint. They say, we created a beautiful template for our sales teams to use. They go in, and by the time we get it back for final review, it looks very different to the template that was put together in the first place. And it means that they have to go back and spend a huge amount of time remaking something on brand. When if they had something like Foleon in the first place, they wouldn't have had to do that. So PowerPoint and PDFs definitely being the two kind of most common formats.
Thank you.
All right. And in terms of the benefits that our customers achieve when they do use the platform, there are tons of benefits. So I kind of just picked the 3 that I hear most commonly that are brought up by our customers. One huge one is obviously creation time, right? So if you're able to work out of a template, you're not reliant on designers or development. It allows it allows business teams, proposal teams, however they're called in your company, to be a lot more self-sufficient, right? Reviews, back and forth, all of that is shortened because the templates can be fixed for business users, eliminating the need for design to have to go back in afterwards and rebrand everything. So I think I'll show you in a second, but Deloitte have reported 2.5 times faster creation process while using Foleon for this type of content. And another Big 4 firm also reported a 90% reduction in the time that it takes them to build these sites. So they're building fully custom microsites for some of these larger proposals. And it is 90% faster to do this in Foleon than what they used to do before. So a really, really huge difference here. And as well, of course, another important one, I touched on it there a little bit with reduction in time, is of course brand consistency, right? So just the idea that everything that you create within the platform will be of a consistently high standard, and ensuring that brand integrity is maintained, just speeding up the process again by ensuring that the brand is always correct. And the last area as well, it's a little bit linked because I think most of these are a bit linked, is of course reduction in cost as well. So we have a number of customers. One I spoke to recently mentioned that using Foleon is actually 1/3 of the cost of their process before. They were able to get rid of some other tech that they were using for proposals. They're able to shorten the time that it takes to design, review, and create all of these documents. And importantly as well, all of our new plans actually contain unlimited publishing. So the more you create in Foleon effectively, the less it costs per proposal. So that's an important thing to take in mind as well. If you're on one of our older plans and you're interested in using Foleon for proposals, definitely reach out to your customer success manager as well. And they can walk you through maybe moving into one of the newer plans as well to take advantage of that unlimited. Now, moving on to how some of our customers actually use Foleon, right? So I mentioned earlier about templating, and that's kind of around the time that Foleon started using Foleon for sales proposals. And that's definitely down to templating. So what we would always suggest in order to make sure that it is quick, that it's easy, that it's on brand, that it's consistent for the customers, is that designers, or Foleon if you don't have designers, build the templates for you, and that they are of course managed separately. It depends a little bit on the structure and also the type of products and services you sell. That should impact indeed how you would structure the templates. So for example, if you're selling maybe 50 different products for argument's sake, then what it would make the most sense to have a skeleton version of a template, and then to allow the sales team to drag and drop in pre-made blocks for the different products that particular customer wants, rather than having everything in place and having to delete stuff. So it's a little bit dependent on exactly what your offering is as to how you would structure the templates, but definitely templates should be created and managed centrally, so that also they can be constantly updated when your offering changes potentially, whether it be pricing or functionality, et cetera, so that these are managed and that everything is then, of course, always up to date.
Eva, I'm jumping in just for a quick question, because you're saying skeleton template. Just maybe to let everyone know that may not really be familiar with that term. Later in this webinar, we're also showing a short video of how to actually put in the video example a buyer hub together, which is very similar to putting a proposal together. And there you can see what a skeleton template will need in terms of changing if set up correctly, right?
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I forget. I'm using this terminology all day that I know it's not necessarily in everybody else's vernacular.
Cool.
Indeed. And the next one then, of course, is about using dummy content within this as well, right? So it's exactly kind of what I was referring to there. There are a number of pages within your proposal which will most likely be completed with actual content. So maybe an About Us page or a vision. What is the company? What do we stand for? These are our main pillars or our main offering. All of those pages, of course, can be completed with actual content. And then, so that makes the creation of a proposal, of course, a lot faster. And that only certain sections, maybe a summary of a conversation or a customer's needs, that those are the only sections that are really completed with actual dummy content. So it's always clear what needs to be edited by a particular proposal manager or member of the sales team. And that links on to the last point, right? Personalizing proposals. So each sales team member would be able to customize a proposal themselves. So the boilerplate pages stay in place, and that they're really only spending a small bit of time in the platform to actually customize the proposal that they're working on. So just to share a little aside on Foleon, the buyer hub that you're going to be seeing the video on how to put that together, that's what we call a proposal, by the way. It's the same thing. So a lot of customers call things by a different name, of course. But the goal for all of us in Foleon here is that we are putting these fully custom docs together in about 15 minutes. It's really as long as it takes each member of the sales team to write the summary of the conversation and to maybe suggest a package to a customer. But that's really all the personalization that needs to happen for those particular assets. That's great. These are very, very interesting insights. Are you okay if I ask you a question that came in? Sure. Yeah. All right. Chris, thank you for asking your question. Chris Fuller, and let me actually show that on the screen. Do you format your Foleon proposals with the download as PDF functionality in mind? I would imagine many people will want to read the proposal offline or certainly need to submit a copy to purchasing. Fantastic question, Chris. Thank you. So the answer to it, in how we do it, no, we do not design them with download to PDF functionality in mind. However, we do have, as I mentioned, we have a lot of customers that are in more traditional industries, things like consulting, business services, where actually even the output itself needs to be in a PDF. So what most of these customers do is it's really just a limitation of the system where the RFP documentation or whatever is being uploaded. So what they tend to do as a workaround to ensure that they can still upload something, but share the proposal in the manner that makes sense, which to them is in the Foleon doc, is that they actually create just a simple one-pager. So it'll have, their logo on top, dear customer name, thanks for considering us as providers for you, et cetera, and then they provide a link to the URL of the Foleon doc, and then if it's password protected, also the password on that same document. And then that's downloaded as a PDF and uploaded into the RFP response platform. So that's typically how people get around it. If you really have to have a separate version, our experience, our analytics tells us that if you offer a document in an offline, in a PDF version, 98% of the audience do not click on the download button. So that does mean that we are only catering for that 2%. And even of that 2%, we then don't know if they actually look at it or not, or if they just go back and look at the Foleon doc again. So we don't do it, but what you could always do, of course, is duplicate the document. And then if there are any overlays or any pieces of content that you feel would be better placed within the body of the main content, that you then just simply remove those overlays and drop the content into the existing pages and then proceed with your PDF export. Great. Thank you for that detailed answer. That's great. And Chris, thank you for your question. If anyone else or you, Chris, have more questions, keep them coming because that, I think, is it for now. So let's move on with the presentation. Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Lubka.
Thank you.
So now we're going to run through just a couple of best practices. I tried to think of all aspects of building proposals and the workflow to make sure that we kind of have all of our bases covered. If there's anything else that you want to know about, again, continue to ask everything in the chat, of course. So I'm going to start off with templates and brand kit here. I've said it a bunch of times here, but you can never template too much. I would say template, template, template where possible. Continue to update and amend your template library. And I would also say it's a good idea to keep one particular person or a team, maybe designers, to be the owners of all of the templates for sales as well. As you need to update and change things, of course, it's important that your templates are updated as well, so that you're always having the most up-to-date templates available for your sales team to use for these proposals. And of course, continue adding to the template library as well. Crucially as well, this is also exciting new functionality to Foleon. I heard it described as magic recently, but the brand kit. So the ability to centrally manage and control the brand, of course, is something that's really important. So just the ability to have the branding applied by default to all of these documents is really, really crucial. It reduces the amount of time it takes to build assets, of course, because everything is on brand. It reduces the amount of editing that has to be done afterwards. So really setting up the brand kit is a really, really important piece. And I think, to be honest, not having control over brand and fear of what salespeople will do in a platform has tended to be the main feedback that we have received from companies in the past as to why they wouldn't use Foleon for proposals. But through applying the brand kit and the breakup of the editor into the two separate versions, we've really overcome that. So we've taken away, hopefully, that fear from people about opening up the platform to different types of users. And here we are. Users is the next one. It's also, because we have now two different types of users, we have standard users and we have premium users. So a premium user for us is really a designer or somebody who's controlling the design and the layout of a document. A standard user then would be like me, for example. If I were to go in and use the platform, I would be a standard user. I'm not a designer. I would be a business user. I can, but I shouldn't be allowed to play around with the brand or any of those things. So I need those guardrails and also the simplicity of the content builder. So all of the design questions that previously I might have had to have thought about and might have maybe overwhelmed me a small bit have now been taken away. So I have a much more simpler, streamlined experience when working in the content builder. And then also from a security standpoint, what is really important to note is every time you create a piece of content in Foleon, by default, it is not going to be indexed by search engines. So of course, for proposals in particular, this is really important. So of course, there's many different ways that you can control and secure the access to your content. So for example, we have username and password. We also have OTP, but it really depends on, I think there's a balance to be struck between what is the type and the nature of the content included in the proposal, and also how easy do you want access to be for the users, and also what would happen if this information were leaked. When something is in a PDF or a PowerPoint, the max you can do in a PDF, for example, would be password protection, right? So that's also something that you can do in Foleon as well. If you want it to be a little bit more secure and there's really commercially sensitive information within your proposal, then you can do something like OTP. So it will allow the reader access for a 90-minute period and then will expire, and they'll need to just request a new link from within their access email. So it's still very easy and straightforward, but it's just important to bear in mind about access control.
Great, thank you. Maybe just one question about access control. How would you define the difference between using a gated Foleon doc and setting up access control? And is there a difference?
Yeah, there is a difference. So using a gate, gates are most typically common, I guess they would be most known within marketing content, right? When you gate sounds like something's closed, right? But it's not really. A gate is just a way for teams to gather information about somebody who is reading an asset, but anybody can, once they provide some information, access that asset. So it doesn't really lock or control access to the platform. It just requires people to provide some information first. So if you're actually controlling access, then we're talking a username or a password or both, or you're talking confirmation via an email address, which would be OTP or one-time password. So those options, you cannot access a document unless you know the username and password, or unless you have received that particular email into your inbox containing the secure link. So there's a difference, open access, but have to provide information, versus you actually need to be an intended member of the audience of that particular doc before you can.
All right, I get it. A few more questions have been coming in. So yeah. Just before I go to that, quick recap, Eva just shared about workflow best practices, 6 topics, templates, brand kit, users, access control, the journey that you can take your readers through in the Foleon doc, and customization. Time for a question? There is one from Ahmed. Thanks for asking your question, Ahmed. That's great. My organization has had an issue with sharing Foleon links with some of our partners. Their firewall has prevented Foleon links from being opened, which causes us to go back to using PowerPoint to create a PDF. Is there any way around this issue?
Yeah, that's a good question. We honestly don't come across this as an issue that often. We have experienced it once or twice. Usually I'm curious what type of customers they are. Are they banks or something? Banks are usually the types of customers that I have seen this particular issue coming up. And what you could do as well, particularly if it's a proposal and information that is about the customer, they might actually appreciate it being hosted locally on their own servers. So you could actually provide them a copy of the proposal that they would be able to host locally, and then they would have absolutely no problem. Or the second option, of course, would be for their IT team to just allow content from Foleon to be viewed internally. So those would really be the 2 options.
Great, thanks for that. Another question came in. Let's do that one, then move on to your story and the rest of the questions. Thank you, and we'll get back to them at a later moment. Michelle, thanks for this question. Do your proposals allow a digital signature option for customers to sign off on their proposal? And if so, what method is there to receive the proposal with signature offline from the document? Email to sales team, etc.
Good question. Okay. There isn't currently a method for a digital signature option within a proposal. And I'm not sure, being honest, if we will ever offer that. And I don't know is the answer, but I think there's a lot to consider there. And the first thing, what would I think make a lot of customers a little bit nervous maybe, is that Foleon can always be updated. So you don't necessarily want something that requires a signature to be something that can always be updated, of course. So for that reason, and I think as well, very often, of course, somebody mentioned earlier in a question about PDFs, right? Before a proposal is signed or an agreement is signed, it will always go through legal teams. It'll go through procurement, it'll go through all of those teams, and they, generally speaking, want to work in a Word document because they have to review terms and conditions and all of that. So I don't foresee that we will really go down that route of really making it a solution for reviewing agreements, as opposed to it being the point where you're pitching your solution, your service, your product, you're explaining the story around it, and then at that point, when it really comes to review time and looking at an agreement, that you would probably then move to an offline format.
Great, thanks for that answer. And I hope it did answer your question, Michelle. Eve, quick check-in. Are we going to go to the video, or are we going to dive in to the other part, which is how to implement Foleon into your sales team?
You can pick. I don't mind where we go next.
let's have the video right now then to really give everyone an idea how would that work in Foleon, and then we can continue with the presentation.
Perfect.
So let me start it, everyone. It's about 2:30, 2:45, I believe, and then we'll be right back with you. There we go.
Now let's put a buyer's hub together for your prospect. First, make sure you're logged into the Foleon editor at app.foleon.com. From the dashboard, hover over the buyer's hub template for you. They may be organized by brand, region, or language, for example. Click Create. Select the project with your name. Enter your prospect's company name for the title of the buyer's hub. You won't need to change anything about the design since the template will have been created for you to use. However, you will need to go through these 5 simple steps before publishing. We'll edit the text and add the company's name and a summary of your conversation. Delete the information not relevant to your prospect and replace it with more information on the main areas that are important to them. Now edit blocks. Some pages may be set up with several blocks, where you need to delete the irrelevant ones. Simply drag in new template blocks with the right information for your prospect. When you drag in a block template and it needs to link to an overlay, the link needs to be updated manually. External links will still be relevant. When the content is finished, you want to now gate the doc. The smartest way is to have a form generated in the CRM used at your organization and have it integrated with Foleon. I'll show you an example of how this works in HubSpot. In order to use a HubSpot form for lead generation, create a form in HubSpot in the Marketing tab. Select Embed Form. Choose a template or start from scratch. In this example, I want to request a person's name and email address. But to make the barrier as low as possible, only an email address may be preferred. Save the form when you're ready. Go to the Form Overview page and click on Your Form to extract the Hub ID and Form ID from the URL. Now back to your Foleon doc in another tab. In the Foleon doc settings, jump to the lead generation section and enable the Gate Your Foleon doc toggle. We'll select HubSpot form in this example. Paste the Hub ID and Form ID here and select where on the screen you want the form to be placed. If the setup is successful, your lead generation gate will now show in the page's overview. After distributing, you'll be getting notifications. In HubSpot, you can see an overview of all submissions. You see their profile, company info, and reading behavior. Things like what time they entered a page and how long they stayed.
Great. So I hope this gave everyone a good general idea of that template skeleton that Aoife mentioned before. So a salesperson jumps in, just makes some minor tweaks to adding or deleting a block, adjusting the text. Of course, if the template has been set up and if maybe also the template blocks with the right content are in place to really make it such a quick turnaround time. Any comments to this lesson before we go back into the presentation, Eve?
No, I think the only thing maybe again just to reiterate around access control in that video there, we're just talking about doing a gate for lead gen, right? So for really, if you think there could be more people involved in the process, but you're not 100% sure, that can be an interesting way to capture that information of those readers. But generally speaking, I think a password protection is probably the way to go with a proposal, if assuming it contains confidential information.
Great, thanks. Yeah, so definitely decide how to set it up per your use case. Let's go into the next topic.
All right. So a couple of things here just to help you to think about how to implement Foleon into your sales team and to explain a little bit what the structure looks like. So what you would have would be your main Foleon account. And then maybe this is owned by marketing, maybe this is owned by professional services, but you're able to add depending on your subscription, of course, a number of different workspaces. And then from here, you would be able to add a dedicated workspace for your sales team to be able to build these proposals. So just like in the example of the video there, you would go and you would select, each salesperson would select the template that they wanted to create, apply it or add it into their project. And then afterwards, you would have all of the various different customer proposals. So each person would be able to manage their own proposals within the account. So that's a little bit kind of how the structure would work, that each person would have their own project and manage their own content. And in terms of the steps to take to get Foleon being introduced within your sales team, I think it's really important actually. Change management is of course, I think, the biggest challenge with introducing any new tech. So it's really getting your sales team on board and excited about using Foleon. I think very often, of course, sales teams, lots of teams across companies, management has a great idea, and they're said, hey, here's this tech, you should use this. But in order to make salespeople really want to use this and use it successfully, you need to appeal to, of course, what is most important for them, improving their win rate and helping them to in order to do that, helping them to get a better understanding of their prospects, who's involved in the process, insights on engagement, so that they can actively see that using Foleon, aside from all the visual things, that it's actually directly impacting them. So is it actually faster to get out there? And are they actually going to understand more about their prospects? So I think this is a really key thing, is to just get your sales team on board. The second thing then would be to plan out and design all of the templates. So again, I mentioned it and it was in the video as well, depending on what your products or services are and how many of them that there are, it would be smart to set up your templates according to that. So whether you have a skeleton version, so the minimum amount there, and then you drag and drop in the various additional sections, or you go the other way around, you have everything in your template and you delete things out. So just make sure you think about how this is structured within your Foleon workspace for your sales team, to make sure that it's very easy for them to create all of the possible variations. And that makes kind of switching out customer stories, for example, something that's very easy, that it's really just a drag and drop. Next, then, definitely testing with a small group. Again, it's all about how the change management and everything is reviewed. So I think it's really important to have a small group work with you first to test out the process, see how it works. Is there any feedback from them? Get them to try and break the system before they roll it out to a larger group. Maybe you'll realize, okay, we need to be more granular about the type of access that we give in the platform. Or maybe you need to give slightly more access depending on how your team works and what they want to be able to do with the proposals that they're building. So I do think that's a really important thing as well. What can always be useful too, just to make sure that everything goes to plan, is to actually build a step-by-step guide. The platform is easy to use, it is intuitive. However, it's always just a good idea to make it as simple as possible for people to be able to build a proposal. So you really start from go here, select your project, go into your template, and then you suggest all of the different things that the person needs to change. They might only need to use it a couple of times until they're really familiar, and then it becomes second nature. But all of these things help with improving the process and help with ensuring that the team will really adopt the platform and will continue to use it and get value from it moving forward. Because of course, that's crucial, that people really use the platform and are getting the most value out of it. And the last one is really about just making sure that you're continually updating and maintaining your templates as well, right? So particularly if they contain actual real content as opposed to lorem ipsum, that I would always suggest that you have a main point person or a power user. Maybe it's even a member of the sales team who's really familiar with Foleon, or maybe it is a designer, but that's someone who is in charge of making sure that templates are kept up to date as you change your offering, as you need to add or update new customer stories, all of these things are really important to keep in mind.
And maybe one question there, Eva, is that within the Foleon team, is that a designer on the sales team? Is it a designer at marketing? Who's the one that keeps the templates, the salespeople at Foleon keep updated?
It is a member of our sales team, actually. So it's one member of the sales team who's responsible for our sales hub template. And that particular person, whenever we do a slight tweak, whenever we add new functionality to a package, every time, of course, as a SaaS company, right, we're constantly releasing new functionality. It's not necessarily always available across all plans. So we have to go back in and adjust the templates and say, okay, it's included in team and it's included in enterprise and so on and so forth. So just making sure that those things are kept up to date. And in our case, it's a business user because they're pretty simple. If he ever needed help and really needed a brand new template, you can always reach out and ask a designer to help. But for most of these copy changes and updates like that, he's able to manage those himself.
All right, cool. So quick recap of the steps that Eva just shared. Get everyone on board, plan and design your templates, test it with a small group, and build a step-by-step guide, and then just keep on improving, growing forward, growing upward. Eva, you may have noticed, maybe you didn't, but I opened the poll while you were presenting that part. And it's actually the question, does the team responsible for proposals have access to Foleon? So if you're watching and you haven't clicked your answer yet, do so now. I'll leave it open for a little bit and then we get into questions because some great ones have been lining up. So we'll review the answers of the poll momentarily. Are you ready for some questions?
Absolutely, bring it on.
The first one is from Ari. For OTP, does the person's email address need to be added to the whitelist prior to them requesting access? If they do not have access, is it possible to receive an alert so that person with the email address has requested access?
I need to read that question again, sorry. Yeah, so we do need, the person sending out the proposal does indeed need to know who the people are that are going to access it. So you would have to know the email addresses of the recipients, so the people who will be receiving it, yeah. And
do the people that you add need to be whitelisted before the OTP will work?
They need to, so the email addresses will need to be included in the list and then the document published. And then those people will receive emails containing a link to the document.
All right, and I think there's two questions in here. So then if I read this correctly, Ari's second question is it possible to receive an alert if a person requests access? Maybe one that they didn't know would want access beforehand.
No, because they wouldn't have received the email in the first place. So they, in theory, wouldn't know, right? They wouldn't be able to request access, no. If someone has had access, so they got the email, they opened the link, and then it has expired, then there is a link contained in that email to request a new link. So they can continually receive additional emails afterwards with access, but the access will always be capped at that defined time period, and that's for security reasons, right? That's the reason why you use OTP.
Cool, thank you. I hope that answered your question, Ari. Thanks for asking it. I see many more, so let's just dive into the next one. Olivia, thanks for asking this one. Does it have a workflow and approval process? For example, last edited by and the ability for the doc to be approved by a super admin before going live?
Fantastic question, and you must have seen into our development roadmap, but this is exactly what we're going to be doing, right? So we, a couple of months ago, I think 2 at this point, we added the review functionality, right? The review mode. So the ability to add comments, to assign tasks to people, that is V1, basically is the short answer. So what we plan on doing moving forward is actually adding in that approval flow. So it will be going from, let's say, from me to Lobke, and lastly to you, Olivia, as the super admin to go ahead and approve something and finally set it to publish. So it's not there yet, but it is definitely where we are going and what we will be doing.
Great, thanks. Follow-up question also by Olivia is, does someone need to be logged into Foleon to leave feedback or comment on a pitch that has been worked on?
So that means on the review mode, I think. So you do need to be, you do need to have access to the platform. You do need to be listed as a standard user. So what we actually did was we provided all subscriptions that were eligible. We provided 5 free standard users free of charge to our customers to make sure that you can avail of this. And just like any other user in the platform, right, you have the ability to manage this as well. So if it makes sense to include person A for one project and then person B for a different project, you can recycle those users and reassign someone as necessary and as you need feedback. If you needed, for argument's sake, a lot more than the default 5, which we provided, then you could always add additional review seats to your account as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, great. I have 2 more lined up in the questions tab. There may be some more that came in through the chat. Just taking account of the time, let's dive into these 2 and then see if we have the flexibility to pick up a few more, or maybe we loop back via email later. Next one. John, thank you for asking. Do you have any examples of good proposals that you can share with us?
This is a little bit of a difficult one because proposals from customers we can never share because, of course, they are all confidential. What we can potentially do for you is share a preview link or a live version of one of our own with dummy content. So that is something that we could do with you, John. We could share that with you afterwards over email. That's no problem. But that is kind of as far as we are able to go in terms of sharing actual examples of proposals, unfortunately.
I actually may have another suggestion because there is a template, and the template is available to all accounts on the dashboard as like a Foleon doc template. So the structure is all in there, and you can just add your own images and text.
Yeah,
I think that is based on our the internal one we use, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we changed it slightly, I believe, but that's also what templates are for, right? Take what you want and get rid of what you don't. So exactly. Yeah.
Keep updating.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Thanks for that question, John. Joshua is the next one. Can you tell us more about the lead generation aspects of Foleon?
Wow, this is a loaded question. There's a lot that you can do because I think. You know, let's say, for example, when a lot of customers come to us looking to use Foleon, one of the main reasons why companies approach us in the first place is we're tired of our PDFs. They really don't look great. And, you know, we'd like to provide something that's more exciting and engaging to our customers. And that's definitely a really big benefit of Foleon. But I do believe, which is what you're asking here, that one of the biggest areas of benefit is really in the analytics and the insights part of Foleon, right? So the ability to really understand your audience, what they're doing with your content, where they're spending their time, what's interesting for them, and also capturing leads and using that information to follow up with them in the best way possible, providing them, you know, actionable and useful follow-ups when it matters most to them, right? So we will give you analytics within Foleon itself. You can also sync up with your CRM and marketing automation platforms. And of course, using the lead gen functionality, you'll be able to gate your content as well. So whether you're using a Foleon gate, if you don't have access to a marketing automation platform like Marketo, Eloqua, Pardot, or HubSpot, for example, we have direct integrations with all of those, and you can just directly drop your forms from those solutions in, and then all of the regular flows that you have in place within those systems will apply. So you just drop in, for argument's sake, an Eloqua form, and then someone completes the Eloqua form. All of that information will go back into Eloqua. Foleon doesn't see it, and they'll be added as a lead or a contact within your marketing automation platform. And then from there, all of the regular flows you have in terms of customer marketing, etc., will kick in at that point. And of course, once somebody exists in your marketing automation platform or your CRM system, that's also when you get those individual level insights as well. So that's where in the video we saw Rachel Morris, VP of Marketing, and all the pages that she'd viewed. That's when you get to see that level of insight as well, once somebody exists in your marketing automation platform or CRM and you've made the connection with Foleon. So it's really, really simple and straightforward. I'm curious what platform you have. If you want to let me know in the chat, or we can take it offline as well.
Great, thanks, Eva. Very extensive answer to Josh's question. We are coming closer to the end, and we still have a few nuggets for you. First, let's have a look at the responses of the poll. So the question was, does the team responsible for proposals have access to Foleon? And I think it's close to 50-50 to see the amount of yes and the amount of no. And a few people said not applied or thinking about it. So I think we have like a good crowd here online today. And thank you all for answering the poll question. I am curious, Eva, could you maybe summarize what we have discussed? Like, this has been a lot of information, best practices for the workflow, why to use it, what are sales proposals? Curious to hear a summary, your thoughts.
Yeah, as I mentioned at the very beginning, proposals are something that I am pretty passionate about. I spend a huge amount of time talking about my customers with proposals. I do think it is one of the most impactful pieces of content that you can build in the platform. And it's really because marketing tends to be the starting place where Foleon lands in an organization. Sales, business development is a logical second place for the use of Foleon to continue. It provides a more consistent experience as well for your customers, for your prospects, that they're not going from flashy, shiny marketing content back into PowerPoint land when they go into sales. So I do think it's always a benefit to use Foleon for proposals like that. And of course, the big benefits being cost, speed and ease of creation, the ability to keep everything on brand, and of course, very importantly, the all-important insights, understanding who's looking at the proposals, who else might be involved with the deal that you weren't aware of, and how are we going to get this deal closed as quickly as possible. So yeah, that for me, that would be kind of a summary. And then I see a quick question there from Sam also in the chat, so I'm just going to very quickly answer that as well. Does Foleon integrate with Peppermint or Microsoft Dynamics? Peppermint I'm not familiar with personally, but I assume that it will also have a tracking script, just like Microsoft Dynamics does, in which case you can add the Dynamics tracking script into your Foleon doc settings. So on the top left-hand corner, there's the menu, and then you go to doc settings, and in those doc settings, you will be able to, in the Google Tag Manager, add your tracking script from Microsoft Dynamics, and then that will push individual level insights back into your document. So what's important there is, though we don't have a direct integration with Microsoft Dynamics, if you create a proposal template, for example, and you add your Dynamics tracking code into the template, then that will apply to all documents. So that's another big benefit, of course, of using templates as well. The tracking will then apply to every document, and you don't have to keep adding it individually.
Thank you for picking up that question. I see there's a few more that came in just now. We will get back to you, either add it to the email flow or just ask your customer success manager to reach out to you. So we will get back and answer your questions. And if we don't, just reach out to us, because we're very happy to answer them. And when I say reach out to us, I mean your customer success manager being your first point of contact, or Peppermint. You could probably also ask that at the support team. Great. Eva, thank you so much for joining. I think this was great. You shared a lot of insights. Before we jump off, I want to just share with everyone that we have another webinar coming up next week about mastering brochure design, and it's going to be slightly different format. We have our creative director online. We're receiving actual brochures of customers like yourself that we are reviewing and sharing as examples and giving our our advice, or Vincent, our creative director, will do that in terms of what is great and what could be slightly better to actually make that brochure be either designed better or get a better conversion there. So the link is in the follow-up email that you'll receive probably in about 30 minutes. So look out for that one if you haven't signed up already. And as soon as we stop this webinar, you'll be redirected. It may take just a little bit, but the page will refresh into the survey, and we'd love for you to answer the survey and share what your thoughts are about this webinar. And you can leave other topics that you urgently want to learn about. Eva, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for the summary at the end as well. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with the audience?
I'm happy to talk to anyone about this as well offline. I hope it came across that I do this a lot, but I'm happy to work individually with people if they just want to have a conversation, brainstorm about how is best to structure this based on what their offering is. I've worked with a lot of companies across different industries, so I have a lot of experience with helping companies to make the rollout successful. So I'm happy to assist in any way that I can.
That is so nice. How can they find you? LinkedIn, email?
LinkedIn, perfect, or also via email as well.
Cool. Aoife Wilson, everyone. Thank you so much for joining as well, taking time out of your day wherever you are around the world. It's always such a pleasure to host these webinars. And thank you as well for Dennis and Joran in the back end. It's great making it fantastic for everyone. And we look forward to reading your feedback. So thanks for joining, and please fill out the survey. Thank you so much.